So here is powerful reading from a huge mentor of mine for many years until he passed a couple of years ago. Huge, I can almost say the catalyst, primary catalyst for the masculinity movement of the late 60s into the 70s. His book Iron John was huge. He really, influencing guys like Sam Keane, who was another one, Fire in the Belly, great writer. There's so much I can say about dear Robert Bly, and his effect on me. I almost don't even know where to start. The time that I spent with him, and he could literally just alter one word in a poem for someone, and it's almost like the soul would open with just that slightest little tweak there. Incredible. It wasn't even just a talent, it was the fire of the soul. And I remember having a conversation with him one time, and we were had been looking over some of my Aramaic to English translations, and I'm like, the fundamentalists won't like this, and he's like, to hell with the fundamentalists. And I'm like, oh really, can I quote you? He's like, you can quote me. I believe he was in an Episcopal church, maybe Methodist. I think it was up in Michigan he was in. But I've been there for live poetry with him. I think here in Asheville, maybe the last time I saw him was about 10 years ago. And Free Planet Radio, River and Elliot and Chris had done this incredible live poetry thing with Robert's translations of Rumi and Hafez. Oh my God, just mind-boggling. Now, let me just add a couple little pieces to this. A lot of what I had to learn the hard way about translation, I learned from Robert. One is getting yourself out of the way. He called your own mental horses. I'll just put it that way, and that's part of this quote, actually. But let me just say a couple things about him. One, this is the guy that went up to Coleman Barks. I believe it was 1977. Coleman is just a few hours south of me. An incredibly haphazard genius, mind-boggling. Most of the translations, interpretations of Rumi over the last 30 years are from Coleman. Robert was the guy that plopped this big stack of scholarly black and white translations of Rumi's work into English into Coleman's hands back in, I believe, 77, and said, please let these out of their cages. And that became a life's passion for Coleman. Now, also, most people would not know that Neil Douglas-Klotz, intriguingly, it was Robert in the late 70s, early 80s who suggested to Neil that he study with the one and only Dr. Rocco Errico, dear sweet soul, mentor of mine forever too. It was actually Bly that said to Neil, hey, you should study Aramaic with Rocco Errico, which is exactly what happened. And Rocco taught him, the basic alphabet and some pretty basic stuff, and then Neil sort of went on his way. But so Robert was a big catalyst for a lot of things. For me, he was this crotchety, beautiful being of light, and I love him and I adore him and I miss him. So this is a really hard lesson that I got. This is from his 8 Stages of Translation book, which I've read so many times, I honestly don't know how many times I've read it. During what I will call the 7th stage, we ask someone born into the language that we're translating from to go over our version. Perhaps we go back to the native speaker who helped us in the first draft. If we did not get such help then, we do now, and we ask him or her to find errors that have crept in. This is a hard lesson for translators, and it's one I really see, ones that are more green on the vine do. For beginning translators, this stage is very painful. As beginners, we tend to give ourselves permission to veer away from the poem's images. Here's the key, pulled away, in fact, by our own private mental horses. And dismay sets in when we realize that some of our best solutions are simply wrong. Hardy St. Martin has always performed this reining in function when I or James Wright with me translated from Spanish. Once I remember, he found in a single Jimenez poem that I had already worked over for months, and that contained only 20 lines to start with, which had 22 errors that could not be allowed to stand. Oof. The error sometimes was in tone, sometimes in image or slant of image. Or I had picked up a South American coloring the word had rather than its Castilian coloring. Or I had gotten the rhythm or vowels wrong. None of us can learn a foreign language well enough to pick all these things up. And I will say, me approaching Aramaic from the outside, there's so much I never would have seen if I was raised with the language. It just wouldn't have happened. That also being said, unlike Spanish, Aramaic is not around like it used to be. Is it a dead language? No, it is not. But what we have today is not exactly what it was then. The truth is we don't know exactly what it was then. Anybody who tells you that we do know exactly how things were pronounced and what they fully meant then is not being honest with you, okay? We just don't know. So then why do I do what I do? So that we can at least possibly brush the hem of the garment of the avatar and get even some deeper sense of what could have been being communicated. And that's something that's really important. I've laid my entire life down for it. Not here to get famous. I'm not here to get, some kind of accolades. I just want to be real. I love you all so dearly.